Good evening. How's everybody? I'm back. I brought along a new friend. I brought over Scott Connor from Mannequin Chill from the Destination Devi Dynasty Deal Show. Scott, how you doing tonight?
Brandon, it is awesome to be here on this Mailbag show. You are back. You were not here last week. Shane and Josh held down the fort. But this is your thing. Anybody that likes these Mailbag shows, that likes a multitude of different topics, this is going to be Brandon's department. So we heard all mock draft season in the comments. More Brandon. We need more Brandon. And sometimes more Brandon was some of these takes are so bad. We need more Brandon.
We need more Brandon.
It's comedic relief for the chat. But you know what? If you're ever a wrestling fan, what do they always say about wrestling, Brandon?
You always need a heel.
Well, no, yeah, exactly. The worst thing you can have is no reaction at all. It's either a lot of cheers or a lot of boos. So let's get to it. I'm glad to be with you tonight, my friend. Looking forward to this mailbag. And every Saturday night, some iteration of this with some mix of Brandon and some other DD creators we're hoping going forward.
Yep. So, Scott, I'm going to go to something we've probably talked about a lot in the Destination Devi Discord. What is your favorite underdog pick to smash and why?
My favorite underdog pick to smash? Well, it's very hard for me to answer one specific player. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tell you right now who my highest rostered players are in Underdog, which I think I'm in for. So if we're looking at complete, let's start with the super flex puppy. How about that, Brandon? I've got 52
let's do super flex puppies.
Super flex puppies. I've been building teams. Anybody that's been in the Discord, Ray and I doing these super flex puppies. There's been many others in the Discord doing these super flex puppies too. There seems to have been an iteration of DD strategy versus what's going on out there in the Twitter streets and other best ball creators. We've been going like 4 quarterbacks right off the rip. Maybe we'll mix in another player. Which when you do that 52 times, and I think 50 of my 52 builds have been that way, Brandon. Early quarterback, get it out of the way. Don't worry about fishing in the Joe Flacco, Shador Sanders waters and hoping I get one of the two being the starter. So it's led me to some very common clicks later on, right? Because there's only maybe 25-ish quarterbacks you're even willing to take. And then, of course, there's correlation and stacking. So here we go. Highest roster. Do you want to go by position?
Sure. Let's go by position.
Position. We have 29% Drake May. And he is QB 15. So kind of think he goes right in that like second, third round, just depending on who needs what exposure, etc. And quarterbacks, I have at least 20% of Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams, Geno Smith. So essentially, like I'm just patting these guys on top of the Burrows, the Hurts, the Lamar, the Daniels, the Allen. They're probably in congruence with those, but those are the ones I have the highest roster. Now is where it gets really interesting. Receivers. Because obviously if I'm going to get 25% plus of some of those guys, I'm going to have some of the same receivers. How about Michael Wilson, 32%? How you feel about that one, Brandon?
I mean, he's a late round guy. He was for what his cost is, right? You're just looking for, can I get 2 weeks?
Well, and he's really the only Cardinal right now, unless you want to count Greg Dortch, that is like a past round 12 pick. You know what I mean? Like after Trey Benson, it's like there's no Cardinals. McBride, Marv, Connor, Benson, Kyler. And then it's like I need a Kyler or I need a Cardinal bring back because they play the Bengals in week 17, right? So like you need something to correlate if you have a Burrow, a Chase, a Higgins, a Chase Brown, any of those. So tons of Michael Wilson, 27% or more. Roma Dunze. That's not even intentional, but I'm buying into the Ray Kool-Aid. Tons of Roma Dunze. If you get Caleb or Brock Purdy, it's just natural to take Rome because he's wide receiver 34. And then Diami Brown, 27% Diami Brown. If you have Jacksonville stacks where you're correlating the Colts in week 17.
Yeah, I feel like I have a little bit of Diami. He's just down there, and you're just like, yeah.
Well, let me ask you. Let me ask you. He's another one that if you don't, like I don't have a lot of Brenton Strange because I'm typically with these builds, I'm stacking my tight ends with my quarterbacks. And so it's either T-Law teams where I get Strange or I'm targeting others. and I'm usually 2 tight ends in, or I'm fading entirely where Brenton Strange goes. Are you concerned with a guy like Dyami Brown to be that high rostered on him? That what if it's just Parker Washington as the wide receiver 3 that's starting, and you're like, I took 0 him and I took 28% Dyami Brown, and they're really similar bets compared to how we're viewing it right now.
Well, and that's what we were kind of discussing yesterday in inside the Discord in the voice chat. Make sure if you want to jump into these conversations, patreon.com/all gas, or go to ddfantasyfootball.com and sign up. But the point we were making in that conversation was that you kind of have to have a little bit of all of them if you're going to draft a large portfolio of best ball drafts, right? Like if you're doing 10 or 15, like, yeah, those are probably not great bets to take Dyami Brown there. But if you are doing, say, 250, 300, 400 of these drafts, at some point you're going to keep clicking the exact same guy. So you have to think about somebody else on the roster, right? So whether it's Dyami Brown, whether it's Parker Washington, a little bit of Brenton Strange, you may have to reach a little bit now for Travis Hunter, right? Because before the draft, he was kind of later on in Underdog, but now he's much higher now that his spot is confirmed. So you have to kind of it's part of the portfolio process.
38% Travion Henderson, by far the highest rostered player on Underdog.
Is there any reason why? Just where he landed, or?
Well, it's a bet on if you have any early correlation with the Jets, you can go there. If you have any Drake May and you do not want to take Stephon Diggs because you'd rather take, because you're building these teams. Let's say I go Brock Purdy, Drake May at the 2-3 turn. I have to take Diggs if I want to stack, or I wait for Hunter Henry, right? Or I'm like, man, I could get Pearsall and pass on. Like, it's easier to stack the Niners. Whereas if I just go Trey Henderson where he goes, there's my stack with Drake May, right? I'll just bank that he's a receiving threat out of the backfield. And that feels like a better stack with Drake May than Kenneth Walker feels with Sam Darnold. You know what I mean? So I've just stacked him with May, and then I've brought him back if I have teams where there's correlation where I don't have May. So it just feels like one of those guys I've gravitated to too often and probably have to back off because I'm still going to probably go max center on this Superflex puppy. So there you go.
Beautiful. Well, there you go, friends. If you wanna peek inside of what Scott's got in his Dynasty best in his Underdog best ball portfolio, it's right there for you. But we're gonna get to your questions, so make sure you drop them in the chat. We're going to try to get those, but we're also going to get to some within our own community. Scott, I'm going to start off with this question for you from one of our Discord members, Alex. When taking over an orphan team and you don't really know anybody in the league, what is the best way to get deals done? Do you fire off a ton of different offers, or do you just sit tight?
So I think with this one, you can take one of two approaches. If you know anything about the league going in, like how did you find out about it? Is it from somebody in the Discord? Can you ask like before you join? Like, hey, can you tell me a little bit about the league, right? Like I usually ask, can you tell me about not just the team, not just the buy-in, all that kind of stuff. Like what kind of league is it? Who else is in it? If I don't know anybody and I just joined it, I actually joined one a couple months ago. It was a dispersal, but it was completely random. I purposely sought out people that I don't know. And I said, I'm taking over a team. I'm going to go in. I did the dispersal, but nobody knew who I was, which is good. Like, even though I'm using my Twitter handle, no one knew who I was, at least that I knew of right offhand. And so I tried to send out some deals, but that didn't really work. I kind of got the sense of this league was a little inactive until me and the other dispersal manager came in and started firing off. The other dispersal manager was also active. So both of us were like an influx of activity to the league, but nobody was biting, right? I took a couple rookie picks in the dispersal. Like I took the 102 and I'm like, oh, I can tier off the 102. And then I'm trying to tier down to 107, 108. Nobody's biting. You know what I mean? Nobody's giving me the leverage deals. So I just kind of continued to sit back. And what did help me is I did have a lot of late round picks. So I had a bunch of thirds, a bunch of fourths. Once I got to a point where I knew I wasn't competing, you're not competing year one if you have a team like that. I just started saying in the chat, this is what I'm trying to do. and I got 3 or 4 deals done. And it was just, I'm looking to sell this guy. This is what I want. I'm looking to move this player in a deal where I get a future third and some fab or something like that. Because it was one of those where it was a little shallower and I could pick up some decent rookies off waivers for a tankier. But what worked for me is I didn't know anybody. They didn't really know me. So I just said exactly what I wanted. And I'm curious because you've done that before. We've seen it work in some of our leagues. Like how exciting is it, Brandon, when you're in an active league and somebody says this player goes for any second? There's a little pressure on you going, do I really want to send a second? Like I will take a look if I know the price tag is sitting in front of me versus it's a vague, I have to go back and forth. So sometimes just being direct. This is what I'm looking to do. This is my line. I'm not haggling. I'm not increasing the prices when I have 3 people that are interested. This is what I want and move on.
Yeah, I would say it's interesting when you have a new person come into a league. We have a couple of Heisman leagues where we've had some orphans kind of come in and come out. And, when those new managers come in, they're all kind of different styles. And many times they're different style from even what I'm trying to do. And so one of the things that I'm always like when I see, any second, or I'm looking to make a deal, like I got to first look at my own team, but then at the other time, I'm also looking at, how active are they? We've got Big Diaz in the chat. He's in one of our leagues, and felt like within 30 minutes, he had like 5 deals done in the dispersal, right after the dispersal draft, because he was just ready to go, So it really just depends on your activity level, Alex, and it really just depends on, if you're trying to completely flip the team, because it's just a bunch of old veterans and you just don't feel like you're going to be able to win year one and you don't have any draft capital and you want to just hit the reset button. Like you got to also be willing to sell some things sometimes at 85 or 90 cents on the dollar from what you have in another league, because, the league economy might be different in that league. So go Scott.
No, I was gonna say, I think another thing to consider is most of the time, would you agree if you're taking over an orphan or you doing a dispersal that was like 2 average or below teams, you're not competing. You're not winning. There's probably already a reason that those teams were open. Now, sometimes you get the random person that just has to step away and they orphan the Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase team. And you're like, okay, that's in the dispersal. That can probably turn into something a little better. But for the most part, usually the dispersal is designed to get everybody back to like homeostasis, right? But it's usually a little bit lower than that. So you really do have to abandon the sparkle in your eyes that goes, man, I can squint. I can see that I have 11 starters here. I might be able to compete. When the reality is you don't really look at all the other teams in your league. There's probably 3 or 4 teams at least that are better than you, if not more. So I think there's some freedom in being able to go, I'm just abandoning the year one hopium and then start moving your team in a direction where you can take advantage of some of the stuff that people are going to want to take advantage of halfway through the season when they also realize that they're not contending. Lean into it now. Start opening roster spots. Start getting your construction in a place where you want it to be next year so that you're not chasing your tail next year. You're already prepared. Yeah, you don't have the horses. You might not have all the players you want, but like set it up to take advantage of a lot of the things that are hacks during leagues. Like we've seen in best ball leagues. Nobody wants backup quarterbacks. I'll take them all. Nobody wants backup running backs. I'll take them all, because nobody's going to want those when they're trying to score, but they may want them and they'll allow me to hold them until they need them and then they'll trade for them. I mean, you've had some master classes at doing that. So lean into that in the summer. Don't wait till week 3 to start going in that direction because you're probably too late.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of math equations, we got another question that regards math equations. It comes from Big T. Thank you, Big T, for your question. Scott, I know you often mention looking at leagues like a math equation when deciding on what moves to make with a team. Can you and Brandon walk through your process when assessing a team's roster construction for a best ball startup? Thanks, fellas.
What do you think? I got some thoughts, but when you approach a best ball startup that's, 12 by 12, 30-man rosters, pretty balanced, but we ain't doing anything that's basic scoring, right? We're doing point per carry, point per first down, 2 PPR for tight ends.
Yeah.
I mean, what
crazy scoring.
Is there math for you, or is it more players and then figure out math later? What is it?
I mean, the piece of the math equation for me is if I got it, let's just do 12 by 12 with 35-man rosters, right? Let's just kind of do somewhat basic. I'm trying my best to get to 24 starters week in, week out, right? Like that's my goal when I'm trying to start up. I want to have 24 assets, right? Because I want to have my 12 starters and I want to have something as a backup to each one of those roster spots. So if it's super flex, maybe I'm trying to get 3 quarterbacks, right? So I have 2 quarterbacks and a 1 behind it. Same, depending on how your running backs and your wide receivers and tight ends, we play in some wild formats where Scott puts, you start 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end, and everything else is flex, right? But I'm trying to get to 24. And then after that, it's a little bit more those last 10, 15 roster spots. You're trying to just churn, right? It's going to be a couple times. There's going to be a couple waiver pieces, might be some guys that you can add in for trades, so on and so forth. But let me ask you, Scott, how many times does that realistically happen in a startup?
I think in a startup to get there, you really have to thread the needle at the right time, especially if you're doing like an auction. It's almost impossible in a snake. Just the nature of, I'm doing a couple snake startups right now, and just the nature of like positional runs. You know what I mean? It's very hard just for the board to fall your way and your construction early fit exactly what your construction is going to be late, just because the board is ever evolving. If it's an auction, it's a little easier, but even then, if you're in with sharp managers, like it's going to be very hard to come out of it with, you might have 24 starters on paper. How many of them are liquid? How many of them can you actually do something else with aside from calling them a starter in this 1 year? But if I went to change it, or if there was something that disrupted a couple of those players, I couldn't do anything with them. So I think for me, like the math equation thing is, it's not being so restrictive that I have to have, there's another question about roster construction, and this literally goes right into it. It's not so much like I have to have 4 running backs. I have to have 6 receivers. I have to have this many quarterbacks. But it is always recognizing that every reaction has an opposite reaction, right? Like it's a push and pull for every decision that you make, especially in best ball, because it's unlike a lineup league. Every roster spot matters. Like you just mentioned, you said 24 out of 30, because subconsciously you're figuring I have 6 roster spots where, hell, there might be a trade I need to take on an extra player. I want to have a spot. There might be a waiver bid where I want to pick up a player. I don't want to have to cut a non-usable receiver, but could be usable next week for another receiver, because then I'm just chasing my tail on when I'm going to get a random week from a receiver. You know what I mean? Like you want to have kind of open spots every couple weeks where you go, yeah, that player I can just cut. I don't care if I ever get him back. That's the key with best ball. But I think once you do that, you start to realize like what does the teeter-totter look like with your roster? Like where can I push and pull? And it kind of frees you a little bit to make some more risky moves, because you can sit there and go, okay, the first thing I do in a league is what's the value of a roster spot? And where does that intersect? And I would recommend everybody, even with the war tool currently getting updated, go check out just a generic 12 by 10 25-man roster league, just PPR, like sleeper standard. Just go study every year where the fantasy production, how it's distributed across the season. Just kind of look at the chart and look at the distribution, and then figure out within your league, like where are those flat spots? Where are those dead spots where the difference between the guy you have on your roster and the guy you pick up on waivers is nothing. It's preference. I'd rather roster this guy, but I don't like that guy. But 2 weeks into the season, they literally could flip-flop. That player has no value. They might have value to Brandon because he really likes Darius Slayton instead of Jermaine Burton. The reality is they're probably the exact same probability, right? So if one has value, but you can pick up the other for free, that's an easy thing in a best ball where you can go, okay, yeah, I like this player better than the other, but I can probably replace that very close off waivers. It just might take a little time for the waiver wire to manifest. That's where the math equation comes in. That's where the little edges you're willing to grind can be the difference in the end.
Yeah, no, I agree. And definitely stay tuned to the War Machine. It's getting a facelift. It's going to be a good facelift that's going to help benefit a lot of people. If you want to check out the current one, go to ddfantasyfootball.com. Scott, got a question here in the chat. Have Daniel Jones in a 14 by 13 Superflex league. What would you sell him for in a deep league like this with the A-Rich situation. Was offered Jaden Reed straight up. Is that enough? My team could use the extra depth. This is his quarterback 3.
So I think if you sell Daniel Jones now, you're probably selling a little bit shy of when he'll have his peak value, maybe his peak demand. I don't want to say peak value. I don't think his value ever really goes up. I think what goes up is his demand, right? Like people are probably a little hesitant to trade for him right now. But if they name Richardson on IR to start the year, Daniel Jones will start the first half of the year. Like someone will want Daniel Jones. They'll want him at the price you probably want to sell him today. They'll want to buy him then when he's sure to be the starter, right? But in a 14 by 13, picture this, Brandon. 14 by 10, do the math. Promise there wouldn't be math, but I would do this to Shane. What's 14 times 10?
That's 140. It's basically
All right.
a 12 by 12.
Now you add on 3 more starters. So you got 42 plus 140. That's 182 starters. If you make that to an equivalent, you're talking like a 12 by 14, basically like a 12 team, like start 15. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're super deep in those flex spots.
The quarterback advantage doesn't matter as much now. There's a scarcity element, right? But the fact that because in a 14 teamer, that tail of starters across the league is going to be so low. Like Jaden Reed he's not a back end starter. He's like a top of your flex starter. You know what I mean? So getting him back actually really is probably a fair price. If this was a 14 by 10, I would say, okay, the quarterback advantage of having an extra quarterback in there might mean more. But because it's spread out so far, it nullifies any sort of advantage Daniel Jones would give you. So it's really just need-based. If you have no quarterback, sure, I would do this deal. If I have 3 quarterbacks and Daniel Jones would be my luxury 4th, then I'll take anything that I'm starting. You know what I mean? Unless I think I can get more. And you probably can just get what you get. So I have no problem doing this deal.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of the deal. Even though it's your quarterback 3, I feel like even if your 1 and your 2 go down, you probably could find a way to find a backup quarterback somewhere on the market, or they're all completely scooped up and you're just without one anyway, and you're probably better off starting.
Picture this, Brandon.
But would you rather start Jaden Reed though in that roster spot regardless?
No, you don't want to start Jaden Reed in the super flex. Okay. But picture a team in this format, 14 by 13. Okay. So I know you don't have a 14 by 13 roster, but you can imagine like everybody's back end 3 or 4 starters are, do I have a warm body this week? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you had just a locked and loaded roster where like Jaden Reed was your last guy. All you're doing is going, man, can I just get 2 guys in quarterback that can give me replacement level? Can I get like a Tua and a Matt Stafford? You know what I mean? Because it's so spread out that there's many other teams. The team that has Lamar Jackson, if he's starting like just 4 dart throws in his flexes, yeah, sure, there's going to be weeks where those hit. But across the board, you have an advantage that's spread out where it's actually nullifying the positional advantage that people maybe paid up to get. And that's where I'm like, Daniel Jones doesn't really move the needle unless I have a specific need. If you're like, I have 2 QBs, one of them is shaky, and then I have Daniel Jones chilling over there, maybe you keep him. But if it's a luxury, I have no problem accepting this. Whereas in a 14 by 10, I wouldn't do it because the impact to somebody else is higher and it would be a detriment to me to just automatically start Jaden Reed.
Yeah. Good question. All right, Scott, we're going to hit a Twitter question. Came to us this afternoon. Gentleman asked, do I have enough at the running back position? This is what he has. He has CMC. He has Travis Etienne. He has Tyrone Tracy, Ramondre Stevenson, Marshawn Lloyd, Tajay Spears, Brashard Smith, Jarquez Hunter, and Trevor Etienne. So we got the Etienne we got both of the Etienne brothers. There was no real additional context. Just, do I have enough at running back? So the floor is yours, Scott. Is this a running back room? Let's just go with a standard 12 by 9. Is this enough? Is this enough running back for you?
You're going to like this one, Brandon. How far do you live away from your office?
15 minutes.
Okay. I assume you have to drive there?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, let's say you have 1 car. You can get to your office almost all the time with your car, right? Now, would you just buy a second car? just in case your first car didn't work? Just for you. I'm not talking about like a family where a bunch of people are using the car. If it was just Brandon, nobody else, would you need 2 cars in case your one broke down? You need 2 so that you don't have to ride your bike or rollerblade or skateboard or walk or whatever to your office or take an Uber, whatever, right? No, you just need 1 car. I mean, that's why this question, I mean, you have plenty at running back. You have 3 or 4 guys you could start week 1 probably. And then you have 3 or 4 more handcuffs, and you probably could add even more backups. But doesn't this roster just come down to, if you lose CMC, now you're in trouble even getting to work every day. But if you don't, your roster is designed most to probably maximize having him as your anchor running back, right? And you have a couple of those guys, if you have to flex them, maybe you can pull some value somewhere else. If you start the season and it's like, wow, I could have started Tracy Stevenson and Travis Etienne. Okay, well, what else can I do with one of those guys? Can I sell one, or can I sell from an excess at receiver or tight end and just flex one of those guys until I have a need? And then guess what? I can go fill that gap if I need to. But this is perfect construction around a guy you're banking on being an anchor running back. I think the fear is, okay, well, what if McCaffrey goes down? Well, it changes the entire construction of your team, right? And you may not be able to rely on this build for more than a year. But as it sits right now, the answer is yes, you have plenty. I would add more running backs to this team. I would hope you're stronger at the positions where you don't have to use a ton of roster spots at the other positions. What kills you on this type of team, Brandon, is when your QB2 is weak and now you're rostering a bunch of backups and you're streaming tight ends, so you're rostering 3 or 4. And now you're going like, wait a second. I'm kind of like platooning 6 starting spots, And now I go, where are all my roster spots being used? And that's how you get kind of like a mid-roster. But yeah, I think you're good. I think you're fine here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, given what we now know in the chat, this is Alistair. It is a 12 by 9, so we guessed right. It is a half PPR, so there's no real bonuses there. It's a lineup league. Yeah, I'm fine with this. Like, I've got my hammer and CMC, and then there's just in case I need something else. Like, Travis Etienne's probably going to produce at least at a running back 3 level, right? I don't think he's completely phased out in Jacksonville. I don't fully believe in what Cohen's saying, but he's going to have a role and he's going to produce. So he's going to have some value. Stevenson's not going to go away. Tajay Spears isn't going to go away. And then you got three rookie spins of the wheel. There's a chance that one of those hits, and then you can move him and maybe consolidate with Travis Etienne and maybe get a second one to make yourself feel better. You don't necessarily need to do that right this second. I guess that's really the question. I think that's really where Scott and I are getting at, Alistair, is really that your running back room is fine right now in June and July. You don't need to be going and trading Jarquez Hunter and Travis Etienne to try and go get, trying to think, like David Montgomery. You don't need to go do that.
No. I mean, like it goes back to my wife drives a 2008 Honda Civic. It has 225,000 miles. The trade-in value on it is like $1,000. It's worth more to get back and forth to work than it is to ever sell it, trade it in, or anything, right? It's kind of the same here. You're not trading Tyrone Tracy, Ramondre Stevenson, and Travis Etienne for more than what they can use for your build in a start 9, right? Like, I think a lot of times people conflate with, man, my team doesn't feel good enough. Well, yeah, this team may not be good enough. It's a start 9. You know what I mean? Depending on what the other starters look like. And you're also kind of admitting that, hey, all of these guys are destination running backs on my team. And now what's the practical part that's hard about this roster, Brandon? Like, you may get into just a habitual cycle of pain with these 3 running back 2s. Like, one this week pops off and gets 2 touchdowns, and that's not the one you started. And then you start that one next week, and Tyrone Tracy goes for 6 catches and 60 yards, and you go, I should start him next week. And then, you know what I mean? That's the scary part. You have nothing sure, and you have a shallow league where you can't go. If this was a 12 by 12, you'd go, I'll just flex one of them and leverage the fact that I don't have to pick one of 3. You know what I mean? But like, can you even upgrade from these guys without it seems easy that I can go, I'll add a first to ETN to get, a really good running back. But does that ever work in 12 by 9s, like super shallow leagues? Just
who's going to give you anything, right? Like that's the other side of it. Who's going to give you something? Like you got a 12/9, but who's going to give you what you truly think you deserve for Travis Etienne in a first, right?
Well, let's say out of training camp, Travis Etienne is named the week 1 starter. You don't know what that means exactly, but he's named the week 1 starter. You get offered a 27-second. Taking it? Or do you say, oh, he's the week 1 starter, I'll start him? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
like that. That's probably at best like what he's named the starter return in trade is like, here, I'll just give you something for him. And you're like, but man, my lineup's actually, if he's a top 24 running back to start the year, I want to start him. I don't want to take the price that, what am I going to do with that second? Unless I can package it on one of these guys and get somebody better, but what's better? You know, it just feels like you're built this way. You're built this way around CMC. If it blows up, it blows up. But I actually think you're built pretty optimally around having a guy like McCaffrey. He's your big bet. If you feel uncomfortable about it, I get it. But I think you're constructed correctly in the backfield.
Yeah. Good question. Let's get to a question from the chat. Sam asks, 10-team, start 9, Superflex, 0.5 PPR. He's got Drake May. He's got Matt Stafford. Going to assume that's James Cook. Going to assume Travis Etienne. Seems like the magnet of Etienne seems to be on a lot of these teams. Chuba, B-Rob, Aaron Jones, T. Higgins, Rashee Rice, JSN, Cup, Diggs, Leggett, Kirk, Njoku, Ertz. Only pick is the 109. Lost in the championship roster. Feels shaky. Scott, what are your thoughts on the roster construction and potential moves?
I mean, it is shaky. What asset on this team you feel better about this year than last year? It feels like if you didn't win the title with last year's James Cook and last year's Chuba Hubbard, last year's T. Higgins, last year's JSN, last year's David Njoku, you know what I mean? Like, doesn't this feel like it's a run it back, but this didn't scream title contender right away off the rip, does it? Feels like you're a little behind it. You have probably in a 10-teamer, one of the lower end QB tandems, right? You definitely have a lower end tight end tandem. Maybe Njoku gets you to the middle of the pack. You don't have really a wide receiver like 1-1. You got a bunch of 2s, 2As, 2Bs. Got enough to get by, but it feels like every position, what would Shane say, lacks a hammer. And yeah,
that's what it feels like.
It feels like second might have been the peak, and you can identify a couple players in there that were, exactly they peaked last year, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's I'm trying to think through that. I'm trying to think through the season when that came up. Right. And he probably had James Cook when he had those really efficient weeks in the playoffs, getting into the playoffs. T. Higgins when he was healthy at the end with Burrow. We all saw the Bengals and just what they did. JSN down the stretch of the season. We were doing an example with the new Trinity tab, and JSN, was performing at levels that were really, really, really good. So,
I mean, dude, T had like 40 in the finals.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like,
you know what I mean? I'm kind of thinking like that. Like last year was the peak.
Like, I'm looking at this team and I'm like, okay, like, how did it get to the championship? But then I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I guess, Matt Stafford, he had to have only had, he had to have decent efforts from May and Stafford. James Cook was absolutely lights out because Chuba was out. Aaron Jones was decent. He had to have run T, JSN, and Cup through the ringer. And then Zach Ertz was terrible down. He was pretty good down the stretch. So what are your thoughts on roster construction? I mean, what can you get for that 109? Because you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Unless you completely just say, I'm going to reverse course and build around Drake May and and Rashee Rice and JSN. That's my core. Everything else be gone.
Yeah. The problem is if you say I'm blowing this team up, like if you just put in the chat, finished second, made some money last year and blowing this up. You know what everybody's going to come after? JSN.
Drake May.
It's a 10-teamer, man. I think someone would be after Drake May, but probably not to the degree that you would think.
No.
But people are going to go, hey, what do you want for, you're like, I want to blow it up. and they'd go, hey, man, like, what do you want for JSN and Rasheed Rice and your draft picks? You know what I mean? And you're sitting there going, man, I need to get rid of B-Rob, Aaron Jones, Chuba Hubbard, Travis Etienne, all the guys that people are going to go, I don't want, but I'll take. So I think it's a tough one to blow up because you have a lot of pot committed players where you're taking 60 cents on the dollar to trade 80% of your roster and to probably be a catalyst to get a big deal done. You probably got to include 1 or 2 or 3 of the assets you don't even want to move. So are you willing to do that? Or do you want to just retool around the 3 or 4 cornerstone pieces you have and try to make another run out of it and just assume you may be stuck in semifinal, make the playoffs, get bounced in first round land for the next year or 2?
Yeah. Yeah. It's because the worst part is like you see this happen and I put James Cook on the block. What are you offering me? You're not offering me a 26 first. You're already starting 26 second, man. That's the best I can do. And now you have to sit there. And then you get to the point of like, I don't really want to sell them for a 26 second. I'll just hold them. So you just keep holding on to pieces because nobody's giving you what you really think they're worth.
Well, isn't this a mistake that a lot of dynasty managers make? We talk about the dynasty discipline, right? A lot of these pieces are very much like when they start producing in week 1, week 2, there will be some demand for them, right? It may not be a huge profit, but I think the way that dynasty is flipped, I do think if Chuba goes out, puts up 18 points in his first 2 games, someone will step to the table and be willing to give you, here, I'll give you a second and, I don't know, a guy like Tootin or Scattaboo who's not playing right away. You know what I mean? You might be able to get that deal done, which is a good process deal down the road if you don't have a team that's right there contending. But here's the thing. Like, if a lot of these guys go out, Brandon, and perform early, what do a lot of managers that have this team do?
I'll just keep running. I'm just going to let it ride.
I started 3-0, man. Like,
I'm going to let it ride.
Right. And what's going to drive anybody having the willingness to trade for Aaron Jones or Chuba or Brian Robinson is going to be the exact reason that is fueling your team or looks like it's fueling your team. So you won't have the discipline to sell for the demand price, not the profit. Oh my gosh, I can actually move this player now price. And a lot of people go, well, Cooper Kupp started strong. I got to adjust the price up now. He cost 30% more than he did during the summer. And then a smart manager goes, yeah, you know what? I'll just wait it out a couple of weeks. I won't spend. And then if Kupp reverts back, you miss your window and your team goes down. So it's really, you got to have discipline with teams like this. You got to have a plan. Hey, if 3 of these running backs fire off early, process selling one of them. Right? Just getting rid of one of them. My team's not in a premier contending mode. I'll be willing to gamble that whatever I pull up off my bench can replace it. But I have to slowly move out of this perpetual just running this team back. Otherwise, it'll be in the ground soon.
It's a good question. But yeah, you got to slowly churn and you got to slowly burn to this one. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Helps us out. Helps grow this channel. Make sure you follow us at Destination W. Thanks to all those people, all the folks who are here in YouTube, out in the X world. Appreciate all the support. Let's get to this question. Anahola asks, how does your strategy change in a league with trade deadlines? I have a few leagues where it's the week 6 to 8. First off, try to get those trade deadlines moved back, brother. Like week 6 to 8, that's like bye weeks. Like,
my analytical brain shuts off if the trade deadline's week 6, bro. I mean, right? Like
week 6, like my team could be 0-6. My team could be 1-5. I got 2 guys that are complete. Like you could have like Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow hurt, and I'm 1-5, and I can't make a decision on the team. Like, oh, that's just too early for me. Like what's the earliest? Dude, the earliest that you want a trade deadline if you have one in your league? If right?
The earliest is the end of week 14, which allows me to go up right until the playoffs. And we were doing a roster review today earlier, Shane and I, and the team or the league had a week 11 trade deadline, which is the week before Thanksgiving. And I'm like, dude, I don't even really start thinking playoff run until after Thanksgiving, right? Like that's usually the week where I always say trade deadlines during Thanksgiving are terrible, Brandon, because you're scrambling like Thanksgiving morning trying to work deals because the games start, at noon on Thursday. Like, why would you ever have a trade deadline then? You know what I mean? So it has to be at least a week later, but this one was week 11, so it's a week before. And you're just like, dude, you don't even get to Thanksgiving and your league's done. You can't do anything anymore. So at least if you're going to have a trade deadline, if your league is just adamant that you cannot trade during the playoffs, at least push it up until that last week. I like to actually do until the start of the week 15 games. That way playoff teams know they're in, non-playoff teams know they're out, but there's no trading to affect actual playoff matchups, right? Like the 6 teams in can trade, the 6 teams out can trade. They can trade with each other, but they know where they stand. Like, that's a good compromise, I think. If you have to have a deadline, I get it. People hate having trades during the finals where the team that got upset in the semis is just selling out to the team that beat them. Like, I understand that. Especially if you have a league that's been running for 4 or 5 years, to change it to that is a little bit of an unfair advantage to the team that stashed 2 extra firsts next year. You know what I mean? Leverages their future capital a little bit more, but at least push it back, man. Sorry, Anahola. I love you, bro, but I don't even know how to analyze week 6 through week 8. I mean, it's so deflating. I'd just pay for a year ahead and leave the league, unfortunately.
I mean, how does your strategy change? I mean, it changes because you gotta get active early in the season.
Do you play it more like best ball? You just start making early bets and just hope they come true?
Yeah. I mean, that's the reality is you have to make a bet. Cause I mean, if it's week 6, you got 8 weeks until you got almost 9 weeks. It's 2 months. There's so much time for something to go wrong before you hit the playoffs. And then you have to sit there and make the bet. Like I remember when you guys were playing, you guys started that one league this year where you had like trade windows. This kind of feels like it, right? Where you just had to make a bet and hope for that window that the bet you made didn't suck. Because if you sucked, your whole team was set back. So I think that like if your strategy changes to answer the question, if the strategy changes, you have to take the minuscule part of data, which is about 5 weeks of NFL play. And for some teams, it's probably even only 4 weeks. And you have to make a large bet off of that small sample size. And it's just going to be really tricky. That's really what it comes down to. You're just going to have really tricky bets to make. And you just have to hope that your ball knowledge skill is better than the other 10 to 14 league mates.
Tell your league you'll donate a buy-in to move the trade deadline back. Like, do what you can to sell them on getting it moved back. At least, I mean, week 6 to week 8. I can't even comprehend. Anyway.
Shane's in the house and he believes
Shane was silent the whole show, but you bring up trade deadlines and then you apply a week 6. Oh my gosh, he jumped out of bed.
Yeah, he heard trade deadline and jumped out. But yeah, that was that when I saw that one, I had to bring it on because I know that there is no strategy. It's just it is what it is. Let's get to another live comment. I see a couple good ones here. Make sure you keep dropping them in. We've got another 15 minutes here. I got one pulled up. Here we go. 12 by 9. We just keep doing 12 by 9s tonight, Scott. 12 by 9. PPR. Lamar, Kyler at quarterback, Kyron, Genty at running back, Amon-Ra, DJ Moore, Devonta Smith, Chris Godwin, and George Kittle. Are we trading the 1-8 and the 2-1 for Devon Achane?
I don't hate it. I think with your running back room currently, like you can aim for a multitude of different players, but I'm just checking off the boxes here, right? You got Lamar, you got Kittle, you got Kyler, you got ASRB, you got Genty. I mean, you got 4 spots to fill. What do you think? It's a fair price, but I think you could also get a receiver in the same range and just bet on Kyron, or you could do the Achane trade. The problem is then if you have Kyron and you're trying to trade him, he's a little bit of a tier above the guys we talked about on the roster a couple questions ago. But like Kyron isn't the guy you put on the block right now. And you're like, I know I'm getting something that's worth what he could be to my team. You know what I mean? Like he kind of fits a bucket of what else can I do with this package? But I like the HN one. I think he gives you asymmetrical weak potential, which is what you need more in a 12x9 versus a 12x11. So I don't hate that.
Yeah, I don't hate the deal. I mean, we're talking what, like Judkins and Colston Loveland, right? Something like that. Igbuka and Golden.
Yeah, and if it's not a tight end premium, like you're almost eliminating the tight ends from the conversation. You're not drafting Loveland.
Yeah,
this
so you're not even draft. So yeah, so it's like Golden and Judkins or Achan.
I mean, if it was drafted correctly, it would be like the 201 ends up being a dead pick because I don't want the tight ends. Now, someone will take the tight end, so you're probably getting like Matthew Golden or Jackson Dart or somebody at the 201. But
yeah,
it just the way I would draft, like that's one thing we do on roster reviews. We go through and we draft with the finest tooth comb, even though the league's probably not going to draft like exactly how we would. I'm looking at those picks going, man, like I don't feel great if I come out of this with Quinshawn Judkins and I forced to take Colston Loveland because he's the only first round player on the board. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's looking at Harvey and Luther Burden or Devon Achan. Like, I'm just going to take Achan in that scenario. I'm cool with it.
It's 12x9 other than some future flip value because there is still a bird in hive mind that's living out there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be real patient if you're not doing that trade for the sake of drafting these two specific players. So yeah, I'm probably taking Achan if those are the two players. Now, you know, if it's Jackson Dart and RJ Harvey, that's much closer in terms of what I could maybe do. You know what I mean? Like if you really wanted to get creative, Jackson Dart frees you up to maybe if he gets, when do you think you're a Giants fan? When do you think Dart gets in there? Realistically. Mid-season, is that fair? 6.5.
I think we talked about it. Shane and I talked about it like a month ago. I think on one of the first mailbags. Like there's not really a great spot. It's probably like week 6, week 7 at the earliest. They have the unfortunate part for the Giants this year is their bye week is week 14, which sucks for fantasy playoffs. But it almost would be the perfect scenario. Like that might be the scenario that they're trying to lean towards. Right? Is if they're out of it. All right. Well, we'll just give Jackson 15, 16, 17, 18. We'll give him a 4-game preview. We already know we're out of it. We probably already asked the coach. Let's give him a couple runs. Let's see if we got something here, or if it's just going to be a burnt first round pick. That's
if I can get Dart and Harvey, I'm willing to slow play Dart because if he takes over earlier than expected, I then have the flexibility with Lamar to maybe move Kyler. I could turn Kyler into a first and a running back. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Then it's like, okay, I basically got Harvey and a first and didn't really impact my roster construction. But that's how I'd have to play it. If you get stuff like, oh, cool, I drafted Colston Loveland and Judkins. Like, I think it really comes down to what do you think you're going to get with those picks? Like the Bird and Harvey package, I think we both agree I would just take Achan and just not stress those decisions and just be done with that rookie draft.
Would you consider doing Kyron in the 201 for Achan and try to keep the 108 if you can?
Sure. 108 gives you a little more flexibility. I mean, you might be able to get might be a receiver that falls there. You know, Ted or Hunter could fall there. You never know the league. 12x9, a lot of times people have more of a need at running back because a receiver has to hit a higher threshold to be a locked-in starter. You just never know. You know what I mean?
Yep. So I'm just trying to think of some different ways, right, to use those picks. Like, you know, because Kyron's a guy that still has some value, but really kind of wasn't exactly...
The key is that 201 is the volatile one, right? It could end up being a home run if it's the right player for the format, but it could also end up being one of those where you ever get that feeling on the clock, Brandon, where you're just like, man, I
don't want to make this pick.
It just falls flat. You know what I mean? Nothing's exciting.
Nope.
Yeah.
Which for many people in the 25 draft was pretty much after the first round. For some folks, like Dart will be there at 201 for sure. So, I mean,
so it's Dart or Harvey or Achan. What are you doing? If you have a league that it's not like a dead league where you're stuck with Dart and you better hope he's good. Otherwise he's out. What are you doing? Are you taking those two specific players, Dart and Harvey for Achan?
For what we saw? Yes. Because I have options, right? Like I have options that if I'm stuck, right? Like if someone just pins me with Dart and says, you know what, Brandon, you're a Giants homer, you're buying into him more than anybody else. And he turns into the quote unquote Will Levis situation, right, Scott? I still have Lamar and Kyler that I can I have an escape valve that somebody else is going to want. They may not want the Dart, like you said. They may want Kyler, and I have another piece to move along. Let's get to. I saw one question in the chat. I want to pull it up. Was trying to get it in for the Dynasty Deal Show, which, by the way, make sure if you want to see the Dynasty Deal Show, make sure you join the Scott. Which tier is it?
It is the Mannequin Chill tier. It is the $3.99 tier. Every Friday night, 9:00, members only Dynasty Deal Show. As many trades as you want to get in. The first two have been very interesting. We've gotten a lot of 4, 5, 6-part questions with a bunch of context, but we're here for the people.
Yep.
Also, if you want to see those live, be in the stream, you can even ask them. We open up the stream about 12 hours before it starts. So Friday mornings, it's open. You can post your trades. We'll get to all of them on every stream. Otherwise, you can catch it when it comes out the next week. That'll come out, I think, next Thursday or next Friday. It'll go live, so you can still see it. But appreciate you, DTs. Looks like he tried to get it in, but couldn't make it.
All right. 12 by 10, Superflex PPR, 6-4 quarterback scoring, and 2 PPR tight ends. So it's got heavy tight end. Michael Penix and good old Harold Fannin Jr. or Sam Laporta, and I'm going to assume Trey Benson. So Penix and Fannin or Laporta.
I actually think this is an interesting one. That this will be a great one to run through once we get the War Tool updated. But even now, you could go and look. I bet you, Brandon, with that 6-4, there's some punitive scoring for the quarterbacks if they are. I don't know if you've seen any projections, but most of them that I've seen, like it's got Penix at 12 to 15 picks. You know what I mean? Like this isn't a guy that's going to throw up a 30 touchdown, 5 interception season, most likely. So if you just, would you say 30 TDs for Penix would be great for him where he's at?
Yeah. I mean, that's almost 2 touchdowns a game. Like that.
But if he throws 30 TDs, it's probably 15 picks. Would that be fair?
Yeah. It's a little less than 1 a game, just under 1 a game. That makes sense. With
I'm
the amount
saying,
of volume they're going to throw. Yeah.
That kind of scoring, if you think about it, 30 TDs is great. That's 180 points for TDs, but damn, you're losing 60. You're nullifying a third of that production with the interceptions. Like that's a big negative. You know what I mean? Like this is the scoring where the 6 boosts up the guys, like Burrow a lot, right? He doesn't throw a lot of picks, but he throws a lot of touchdowns. But you get into some of these guys, they're like, yeah, that guy's going to throw 31 touchdowns, but he's throwing 18 picks. You're like, that 6 point per passing touchdown. I don't know, man. 2 PPR. There's probably a market for Laporta here. Tight QB market. 2 hoarders loaded at tight end.
Yeah, I wanted to hold off on the context until we started getting closer to the decision.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Let's say you have 2 teams in the league that have 4 starters. In this type of punitive scoring format, doesn't it make, because it's already a depressed market, right? Like the quarterback market is already a little less valuable because of the scoring.
Do you just lean in?
Would the strategy for the other 10 teams to kind of just be let those 8, 9, 10 quarterbacks park on 2 rosters and say, you know what, we're going to lean into just dominating with as many other skill players as possible? At some point, they're going to have to come to you because they're going to need what everybody else has. It's 2 versus 10.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what DT's other quarterback is. Right. So I don't like, for me, the way he's doing it, that's exactly what I would do. Right. If I'm not going to get the quarterback, and he's saying it right now, it gets really scary at mediocre quarterback. Like if you don't have a top 12, I kind of just want to load in this way. I'm going to take my Brock Bowers, my Sam Laporta, my Colston Loveland, and I'm just going to play those guys because chances, Scott, how often do you think Bowers and Laporta are not going to how many times do you think Bowers and Laporta are going to outscore a quarterback 2?
Well, and I think that's the key is depending on who your QB1 is. You remember Scott Fishbowl had this a couple years ago? And quarterbacks were throwing up stinkers. If you went out and threw 3 picks, you're posting a -4. You know what I mean? It's crushing your week. Whereas now a good quarterback game, Penix goes 3 touchdowns, 400 yards, no picks. He's scoring 30 points. You know what I mean? But the swings are higher. So if I'm sitting here going, I need a QB and my QB1 is Penix, who's my QB2? it's probably a guy just as volatile. It's like a Stafford or something like that. Like, dude, there could be weeks where Caleb and AR, I mean,
again, more context.
You know what, dude? Now that you say that, like Caleb already, I mean, I like Caleb. I think Caleb might even be on that
That's the fringe.
higher end of the volatility. I think I'm riding with what you have. I'm holding out.
Yeah. Yeah. The more layers that come out to this, the more I'm talking myself out of the quarterback. Because yes, you need one, but at the same time, do I need to use one of my premium pieces to go get one? Like, I know that it's tight, but could I go use one of those fringy tight ends? I think I saw Hunter Henry and K. Dotton. Can I go use one of those guys for a spot starter if I need one?
Yeah.
If AR goes down, because you're operating under the assumption that Anthony Richardson is going to be your quarterback too for the better part of the season, right? Like that's how
here's
he
a savvy trade move. If this guy's a quarterback hoarder, just tell him, hey, I'm willing to, because he's probably coming to you for the deal because he wants something out of his quarterbacks, right? He's sick of holding all of the ones that he has. That's probably the premise of why the deal gets done. All right, Brandon, I will do your trade. I will give you Laporta. And what was the other piece? Fannin, I think. Laporta and Benson for Fannin and Penix.
Correct.
I'll give you that. You throw me a second and a third. You take back Richardson. You rid me of the dead anchor and give me some liquidity for that, and I'll oblige on the trade. Let's see if he's really a quarterback hoarder, because that'll tell exactly what his intention is right there. If he's trying to shed quarterbacks, he's going to look at getting Richardson back and having to give up a pick. No way. Call his bluff. Make him help you out in another way if you're going to do the deal.
Yeah. We appreciate the question. Definitely appreciate the question. And let's get one more question in before we wrap up here. And it kind of goes to a question we were talking about in the voice chat yesterday inside of the destination or the DDFFB Discord. If you want more information, links are below. Scott, which of the 49ers wide receivers do you trust the most and the least? Who will perform best this year? One almost has to smash, if not multiple. We just had this conversation yesterday, so I'll leave the floor to you.
Well, no, I mean, you were part of it. We were just talking through the entire Niners offense, right? I think it stemmed from, we were just talking in voice chat, like go through your exposures of 49ers. And it was like, there's 5 of them, right? You got the 3 receivers, you got Jennings, you got Ayuk, you got Pearsall, you got CMC, and you got Kittle. They have 5 skill players. And I think it was like, oh, I'm underweight in all 5.
Yeah.
I'm scared of all 5. And it's partially all of them have either bad profiles and or injury history, right? So it's understandable you'd be skeptical of all 5. Yet people are also scared of all 5 because they think, okay, well, if they're all healthy, at least a couple of them are going to bust. You know what I mean? So the human condition is just to be scared of all of them and not really plant your flag. So I think it was more of like, okay, if you're in on Pearsall, I think I'd probably, as Pearsall starting to move down a little bit now because of his injury, I think I'd probably lean Pearsall first. Just because I think the Ayuk injury, I think by the time we get to like August, if he's not practicing, which it doesn't sound like he's going to at all.
Sounds like he might even go on PUP.
Yeah,
so like he's going to be out for
he will
6
not
weeks.
be wide receiver 46 like he is right now. He'll continue to fall. So he might actually become the guy I'm more in on if he slips 20% lower than where he is. I think right now it'd probably be Kittle and Pearsall. But that's also because like when you're taking, like right now on DraftKings, you can get Gibbs and Genty right where you can get McCaffrey. And that feels like, yes, McCaffrey could break fantasy, but it also feels like I'm okay building anchor around those two than just taking McCaffrey. So I think it'd probably be Kittle, Pearsall. Then I would say Jennings maybe.
Yeah, I feel like people are really pushing Jennings this year. And we had that conversation yesterday. And I almost would rather take DeMarcus Robinson because I kind of feel like he's like discount Jennings.
To push Jennings, I mean, he's damn near a top 30 receiver, and I'm just looking at him like you're taking him over. Like there's some drafts people will take him over Zay Flowers. You know what I mean? Like, dude, that's like a back-to-back 1,000-yard receiver. That's a first-round pick. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to do that. So,
yeah, that's a good question. And again, we had a conversation about him yesterday. So, appreciate the
correlate
questions.
your exposure. go through it in your head. And I think this is an exercise you can do for half the teams in the league, Brandon.
Yep.
Who do you not like? I hate, usually when you talk to somebody for a couple minutes, they'll expose their real feelings, right? I hate Ayuk. He's not even going to be healthy this year. Okay. You have 1% of Ayuk, right? Don't even bet on him anywhere. Then it's like, do you feel comfortable taking McCaffrey in the first round? No, not really. Okay. So you're going to have less than 5% McCaffrey. Okay. Do the math, right? One of the other three, you should have more investment in, unless you're just betting that the Niners are going to suck. They go 4-13 and everything implodes, which again is also a big bet on an outlier.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you, my friend. Appreciate everybody here in the chat. We had a good variety of questions. Scott, why don't you tell the people what you're up to and what is your plans for the next, say, 6 weeks here on the Destination Devy platform?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. I continue to want to support Brandon on this mailbag journey. I think you're really coming into your groove. So I'm excited to see where you take this throughout the rest of the summer. Doing some more mailbag episodes. As for me, we're working on the War Tool. The Trinity Tool just got updated. So ddfantasyfootball.com. You can use the promo code CHILL if you want to check it out for a month. Get a 50% off discount. This is the time to try it out because you're going to want the Trinity during the season. 100%. If you're talking through some of these hacks at receiver where you can deleverage and tear down, you know what I mean? Like, it's the best tool out there to kind of predict where some of those ambiguous zones of receivers are going to fall going forward. Not just what happened, but going forward rest of the season. So working on that, getting a feel for it. War Tools being updated. I'll probably be doing a long series throughout the summer once the War Tool is updated on how to use it, how I use it, how to fix your roster construction, how to come up with roster construction for your format, because it's going to be pretty cool. Some of the stuff that it highlights very easily to see on the screen. So I'll be working on that. And then obviously the shows we're doing. Destination Chill, we're doing it on Sunday night. Ray and I will be back probably 8:30, I think is the time we're going to be shooting for every other week. And then Dynasty Deal Show and Mannequin Chill Fridays and Wednesdays.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Scott, for being gracious enough to sit next to me for an hour. If you want to see more of Scott, make sure to like and subscribe this channel. If you want to see the Dynasty Deal Show or Destination Chill, which you just talked about, make sure you go and subscribe to the Mannequin Chill tier. Only $3.99, but a lot of information, and it is truly worth your time. But until next Saturday night, take care, everybody. Peace.